processes or structures you found effective for breaking down silos between special education, general education, and other departments such as transportation or technology?
So one of the structures that I've had the joy of helping create for some of my campuses that I really love doing with schools is I love doing what's called a co-planning day. And so this can be done with either co-teachers or it can be done with a resource teacher that's providing services to a general ed classroom, maybe in a push-in model, can be done with a speech and language pathologist that's providing supports to kids in a gen ed setting, can be a variety of different ways. And the structure for the day is essentially it's an entire day where these two folks are able to be subbed out for the day to be able to actually deeply plan with each other. And so the structure exists as they get a customized hour of professional learning in the morning with me or somebody else on my team that is able to coach and work with folks on their specific goals for their specific classroom. So it's like a one-on-one professional learning session that they're getting a ton of coaching and support. We do things like look at student work together. We look at how are your kids doing? Pick 5 kids. Pick a kid that didn't do super hot on the last exit slip, a kid who did great, some kids in the middle. Let's look and see where all of your kids fell, and let's do some analysis. Like, what happened? What did you do in class? Like, what was the moves you made? Why may this have happened? And do some problem solving. And then we give them an entire 5+ hours to actually then take that and go plan with it. Go do something with it. Go sit down and the rest of the day just go plan. Go work through this. Go think about how you're going to address these needs in your classroom for your reteach potentially and for longer term planning for your classroom. And then come back at the end of the day and let's reflect and think about how we're going to move this forward for the rest of the year. So I've seen that structure works really, really, really well because we're bringing two different brains together. We're bringing that special ed lens, whether it's a special ed teacher or a related service provider and your gen ed staff to really navigate and think through these things together collaboratively and get a perspective while also having a coach step in and be able to be just a support to push in the right direction, coupled with actual time to plan. Teachers need time to plan stuff. We cannot give people a laundry list of accommodations, but never give them time to actually implement. Our schools are full of initiatives. Our teachers are supposed to be good at everything. They actually need time to implement. And so what we've heard from our teachers, they've been running these days at my campuses. I think we're in year 4. And really just like having time, having a little guidance, but then some time to actually get into the nitty gritty together to plan together. Having time to plan together, not planning in your department meeting as just your SPED department or your math department, but having detailed time as a special ed and gen ed staff to plan together has really made a huge difference for the classes that I'm seeing a major shift in their grades or their state testing scores.
I want to do a planning day. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Sounds
They're very
amazing.
fun. Our teacher,
Yeah.
one of the highest rated PD offerings
Oh,
that we do at some of my campuses because it's
I'm
fun
sure.
and it meets the needs of people.
Yeah.
And I think when you see that impact, it makes, when you see that then actually like come to life in classrooms, it can be, the most rewarding thing. I think one of the reasons why we are losing so many special education teachers is because they don't feel good at their jobs. Like why would you ever want to, continue to do a job when you feel like you're failing your kids? I
Mhm.
know when I was a teacher, I felt like I was failing my kids. Um, for the first, I mean, I don't know if I ever felt like I was really crushing it, but um, it just makes me, it just, I have a lot of empathy for new special education teachers. Um, in general, just because of that. In terms of other structures and systems, we're talking about breaking down silos, is that right?
Yes. Let me just read it. So, what processes or structures have you found effective for breaking down silos between special ed, gen ed, and other departments such as transportation or technology?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think those silos start at the district level a lot of times, and then they just sort of get trickled down. So I think that um, there has to be more collaboration and more, you know, uh, shared initiatives at a district or network level. What I have seen a lot is that folks there's always, I think, Glennis, you said this, like so many initiatives that teachers are supposed to new things that are getting rolled out, and their academics has this focus, and operations has this focus, and sped has this focus, and ELL has this focus, and it's just too much for everybody to work on. So I think it has to be like, what are the two, shared initiatives that we have, and what does it look like in all of these different areas, not just these siloed kind of efforts and um, sort of priorities, because there are so many things that are prioritized, that are a priority for one like section, but then not the other. And it just it gets really messy, and teachers get so frustrated with all of the new things rolling out, and the new this and the new that, and different schedules. And it can be really frustrating, I think, for a teacher to experience that. And so as leaders, like, we have to do a better job of prioritizing things for teachers and making them shared across disciplines, so that they feel like everybody's working together for one thing. I just see that a ton.
We know that compliance is just super important in the field of special education. So how do you design systems that ensure federal and state compliance requirements are met without letting paperwork overshadow student-centered practices?
Are you teeing me up, Martha, to talk about managed? Um,
You kind of
yeah,
said
so
it.
this has been such a passion. Like, I would not say compliance is like my personal passion, but it's like the thing that I'm passionate about getting out of the way, so that teachers can do the work that they got into the field for. And our product managed, the idea of it is just to take all those administrative things and to take them away, or to make them super easy to see, and see where you're at, and break down all of your deadlines, because a new teacher doesn't know the processes, and we're asking them to administer a legal mandated federal process. Um, and most of the time, we're not giving them very many tools about how to do that well. And that's why I've spent the last 3 years working on this product that essentially, like, gives guidance, provides collaboration, but then also just makes things a whole lot easier for teachers to see and navigate and know where they're at, and allow districts and administrators to see where their compliance concerns are, so that they can get proactive about supporting those. Because once an IEP goes overdue, it's overdue, right? How do you know in the lead up that it's going to be overdue, um, or that they're not on track to have it done? And we're creating ways that administrators and districts can get insight into that data, to see not only where we're having issues, but with like specific students and compliance, but also what are the leading indicators that a program in general isn't doing very well. So, if parents aren't filling out surveys about their kids' progress, why aren't they engaging? Why does this school have a really low engagement rate? How do we need to try to re-engage those parents? Or do we have parents that are super frustrated with something that's going on? All of these things are to give better insights into how the school is doing for district and school administrators, so that they can know where to put their attention, because there's too much to do just generally. But there are ways that we can sort of measure and assess, and then prioritize support for different places and different people, if we have the data. And most tools that are out there don't allow for that. And ours does, in addition to just supporting teachers to automate things and make it easy. It's so cool. Very excited about it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and piggyback off of Ingrid. I think Manage is a great option for teachers that are really and districts that are looking to really just take away the stuff that is just, in a lot of ways, just is, as I mentioned earlier, is a mental load for teachers. It's just a whole lot of stuff to do that really there's now a tool out there that can help kind of take away that part, right? The part that matters is really deeply understanding and assessing kids' ability, understanding what they need, understanding their strengths, and how to design a plan that's actually going to work for them in class. So then we can focus on implementation. That's what matters the most. And there's all these other things that teachers get bogged down by from an administrative standpoint, that I think Manage really is going to take away a lot of that extra fluff that really teachers don't need to be spending their time doing. And so I think Manage is a really great option. I think, as mentioned earlier, AI has a lot of potential to come up also, and supporting teachers with just even thinking through ideas, thinking through frames, thinking through, I'm a new teacher and I'm in an intern program. I'm in my first special ed class and I need to write an IEP. AI does have the ability to help give you some information. Obviously, you need to mind confidentiality, but you can get some good ideas by plugging in a little bit of information and getting some ideas that I think, as when I was an intern teacher and knew nothing and had to open up books and try to figure out what does this kid need, I can now hop into an AI platform and be able to say, like, hey, my kid has X, Y, and Z need. What are some possible accommodations for this type of need? So at least as an intern or emergency permitted teacher who knows nothing about special ed yet, I have something to come into the meeting with some confidence. And I think that there is a lot of benefit to those tools upcoming that I think will help alleviate some of the stress for teachers. I wish I had all these tools when I was a teacher, to help kind of with those pieces. And then I think the other piece with compliance is really thinking about how we're investing in coaching for teachers. What does that look like? What does a robust coaching plan look like? And not a, how do we have somebody from the district show up at the teacher's first IEP and then bye, we'll see you later, or if that at all. I hear from special ed teachers where they get nothing, no support. They get a training in the beginning of the year and then they're off to the races. And this is a hard job. I've been in this for 15 years and I still learn things every day about different ways to do things and how to write things and how to convey things, that I just really think that coaching and the way we coach and support special ed teachers is going to be a huge part of the work too. Because while you have these tech tools that are supporting teachers with the admin pieces, with the pieces that, they can automate, having a human to also then be able to work back and forth through the stuff that's hard, right? The cases that's hard, the parent that's really upset with you, but they're not actually upset with you. They're upset with the school district because of all the things that have happened up until this point. You need another human that can empathize with you and work through that with you. And I think that's where coaching, and that's some of the work that we do, is really ensuring that teachers have someone to bounce these ideas off with, someone to vent to, someone to cry after the IEP meeting, after the parent yelled at you for something. Like, those are real things that happen, are real reasons why teachers leave the profession for not feeling supported. So I think tech is definitely a way to help support people. And then I think having true humans to be able to coach and work with teachers through the tough parts is going to help us with compliance and help your teachers want to stay in the field as well. So I think both pieces are necessary.
Thank you. And this leads us into technology and innovation. So, Glynis, you kind of touched on this already, but how do you see technology transforming the way schools deliver special ed services?
I think we're already seeing that from a delivery perspective. We're already seeing places where, where services are being delivered now online, right? Where we used to have shortages. I used to work in schools where, like, there would be no speech and language pathologist for, like, radius of space. Like, we couldn't find someone to come in person. Post-COVID, one of the benefits to that is there is a huge market now for teletherapy. Does it work for every child? No. Do I think in-person is needed for many services? Absolutely. But there is the ability to get kids services when there are shortages in a large range of space now. And so I think we're seeing this at many campuses where teletherapy, teleservices are still being something that is utilized when that's needed, when we have a shortage situation in a specific area, which we see happen in rural areas or in specific communities where we don't have enough people to provide the services. So I think that is one huge benefit of technology that we're seeing still continue in the pathway. I think there's also some work being done right now. There's a lot of different AI tools coming out where there are AI tutors that are coming out to support kids. There's a reading coach out there now for AI. I think we're going to see that certain things like fluency practice, coaching around different tasks. I think we're going to see more AI being used to help support and fill some of those gaps for children, not just in special ed, but I think just across the board. I think we're going to see more of that popping up as a way to support kids and hit more of those one-on-one needs. We're seeing adaptive technology, which we've already had for a while, where, programs are fit to, adapt with what the students' needs are. And I really do think with the introduction of AI, we're going to see more like AI tutoring and AI support to actually teach those skills to fill in some of those gaps. So I do foresee that those things are going to adjust and change. And I think that leads us more into the need to also understand like where, I know that scares some people, but like where does that mean then teachers are providing support? Like what does that look like? And I think that comes into more of this like safety piece, behavior, social, emotional. Teachers are going to need to be really good at those pieces, because even if a student is getting instruction online, those are the pieces that are not going to be able to be filled by an AI bot. Being able to make sure that you feel safe and seen and heard and respected at school, that needs to come from our staff. So I think there's going to be more of a need for our teaching staff and our aides to get really good at those pieces that sometimes were more secondary before. And so I do see an adjustment to that is going to need to be kind of a focus as we move forward.
I was going to say, I agree with all of that. And I think like the push for AI is going to go from just making teachers' lives easier, which in and of itself is a fantastic thing, to, okay, who is making tools that actually are able to produce better, like that are actually supporting kids to and getting better outcomes for kids. And whether that's an AI tutor or, AI that is actually supporting teachers to understand how to support kids better, and not just generating content for them, I think is really going to be sort of the next wave. And so I'm excited about that. Obviously, like there's definitely caution to be had. But when you have teachers that are so new, and our kids deserve us to explore all of these things, because if someone can, if a teacher doesn't have that deep foundational content knowledge and understanding of, brain development and how cognitive processes are impacting like access, we need to fill those gaps somehow. We obviously have had abysmal sort of outcomes for students with disabilities in this country for a very long time. And that just we just need to do a better job. And so that's where I think, yeah, let's explore those things in as safe as way as possible. Because our kids deserve a lot better than what we're giving them, even though every teacher that I know is putting their hearts and souls into their work. We're just not cutting it the way things currently stand. The status quo is just not cutting it for getting our kids what they need.
Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and close and reflect. Looks like we're just about done. To close up, I'd like to ask, what's one piece of advice you'd offer to district leaders who feel overwhelmed by the complexities of special education?
Recognize that like all the fires are going to be there all of the time, no matter what. And it's critical that you take time and prioritize thinking for the future and thinking for the longer term, rather than just thinking about how you're going to make it through this school year, because I think there's just such a temptation to just drown in all of the details. And it's so important to spend time being proactive, because you could easily spend 80 hours a week and not do anything proactive. But you'll always be drowning if you don't take time and prioritize, obviously, yourself and your self-care and those kinds of things, but but also thinking about like, how am I going to improve things? Because that's, I think, how people burn out is they just, they are working so hard and they just feel like they're spinning their wheels without taking the time that's necessary to think about how they're going to get themselves out of the situation that they're currently in and what systems that they need to use, what capacity needs to build, and going through those like strategic exercises as a team or as a staff to really like put a plan in place that helps them to feel like they are taking small steps forward on the proactive side and not just the reactive. That would be my advice for overwhelmed administrators.
Mine is going to be a little bit different, and I think it's really important. And I've noticed this a lot with my teachers and my leaders over the last couple of years. Just take time out to listen to children. Listen to children tell you what's working and what isn't. Just take a minute, even if it's you sit with them at lunch and ask them what was the best part of your day today. That will help you see the pieces that you probably don't see on your data sheets that are working in your school buildings. Talking to kids is going to tell you things that you don't see on those sheets. So we have a practice that we use with our schools that work with us where we do empathy interviews twice a year, where we have an outside person come in and we just interview kids about whatever initiative that they're working on and ask them questions, ask kids questions. We have donuts with kids. We just sit down and chat about what's working and isn't. And our leaders regularly tell us that that is the most important information they get all year because they get to hear how impactful this reading program for these 3 kids is, because this reading program, this kid can now read a menu when she goes out to eat with her family that she couldn't before. You don't hear that from a data sheet, right? You don't hear, I know I'm getting better at reading, miss, because I can read the freeway signs. Your RI data, map data is not going to tell you that. It's still telling you that kid's below in reading. But by hearing our kids' stories for what is working at school, what they like about their classrooms, what they like about the school, what they don't like, listening to kids will help you see the things that are working that you need to double down on, right? We so focus on what's not working at schools and forget to focus on what is working. When kids tell you things are working, that will alleviate some of your concern that you're doing everything wrong. Because I think every leader goes through a point where we're sitting there freaking out that everything is wrong at our school because certain data metrics look a certain way. There's good stuff happening in every campus. Take time to find out what those things are. What are the things that are working so you can double down on those first? That is going to help you. When we focus on our strengths and our relative strengths first, we are going to, by nature, alleviate some of the other challenges we're dealing with. So I would also just like stress, like so much of our overwhelm comes from feeling negative, and really figuring out there are good stuff happening every school. Even if your data doesn't look great, there is good stuff happening. Find out what it is so you can double down on those strengths. And the best way to do that is to ask kids and parents.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Thanks so much. I think we reached the end of our chat here. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank